Welcome everyone on this webinar on how to use blended learning with Kahoot for onboarding training. Today we have a very special guest. We have Andrea Vimercati from Adjust, who has done a case study with us beforehand on how he uses Kahoot in his company for onboarding training. And Andrea is the training team lead at Adjust, and he will be sharing all his insights on how to best tackle blended learning and onboarding training in your company. And he, during our previous case study that we did, wrote this amazing quote for us. It says, Kahoot engages learners and the questions reinforce what they learned the previous day during both the sessions and in their e-learning. So this already shows that Andrea indeed uses Kahoot as blended learning for onboarding training. So Andrea, if you would kindly introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks a lot, Evelyn, for the invite. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today. And yeah, my name is Andrea Mercati, and I'm one of the training managers at Adjust. We are a global B2B software as a service company. We're headquartered in Berlin, and we provide mobile marketers with a platform to help them with mobile measurement, automation of the mobile marketing efforts, and fraud prevention. And currently, we are a little bit more than 500 employees. So that's kind of the kind of size that that we're looking into. Good. Shall I share my screen?
Yes, absolutely. I will stop
Cool.
sharing.
Perfect. Thank you. So what I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit, just to give a little bit of an introduction about what we do at Adjust in terms of onboarding, and what kind of our blend looks like a little bit, and especially also like what have the challenges been for us, like since we have gone remote in the last 6 months, right? Really, like everybody else, or a little bit more actually, because it's November, so we're really talking about 8 months. Time is flying, and it's. I was actually talking to a colleague the other day, and it really almost seems like this has been really like the only modality, right, that we've been doing things so far. So yeah. So first of all, just to kind of give you an understanding of where we come from, and what onboarding means at Adjust. For us, onboarding new hires is really kind of the first step in the learning journey with us. And during onboarding, we basically have like kind of two main objectives here. One is to provide core product and sales knowledge to our new hires, and the second one is to promote our company culture. And really, this kind of really from day one in a way, right? So we really see, we really think of onboarding as kind of the first phases and the first experiences that a new hire does with a company, that does with us at Adjust. And so for us, it's absolutely important that it's really this kind of, that is really done in the best way possible, right? To kind of give that very good impression, that very good idea about, who we are as a company as well. Besides, again, as I said, giving them this kind of core product and sales knowledge that then they can build upon once they leave the onboarding. So how does it look like? A little bit more in detail. So we basically have like a 3 weeks full-time program. Full-time means that during these 3 weeks, the new hires don't do anything else but onboarding activities. So they don't work with that team; they are just with us, basically the learning and development team of at Adjust. And this applies to all new hires. So it doesn't really matter which role they are. They could be from the sales department, from the product departments, so we kind of, we have the client-facing people, but we also have the tech people going through it, the backend developers, the database engineers, and so on. We also have C-suites. We've had in the past, definitely, C-suites also joining us, and vice presidents, and really kind of people at the senior level. Because again, that kind of comes back also to the culture bit, right? So we really want everybody to, experience that start with us. And we've also seen that people really enjoy, for example, seeing, oh, I'm actually sitting in the classroom next to the new vice president for EMEA or whatever, right? So it's kind of it really kind of generates a great feeling of kind of all starting on the same at the same level. This was or used to be traditionally run in the Berlin headquarters, right? So all the hires from everywhere in the world, from US, APAC, they will all come to Berlin here for a few weeks. Since the pandemic is it, we have turned everything into a fully remote experience for all the hires. And we'll come back a little bit later in the presentation to kind of talk about a little bit what were the challenges, right, that we had to face because of the remote situation. What we do in these 2 weeks time, we basically kind of run 3 different curricula. They're kind of running in parallel. So we're going to have a curricula dedicated to product. And again, this is where what we want to, we kind of have as a final objective to give the new hires this core knowledge of, of the product, what the product is, how it works, and also how it can be sold. We have a curricula dedicated to the company, which basically consists in introductions to the different teams. So we have typically is the head or a leading figure in the teams and in departments, and comes out and give a presentation about the team. And really here, again, what we try to achieve, to pass on the kind of culture, but also give an understanding to people from day one of who is doing what within the company and how the different teams and the different departments are working together. And the last curricula, the third curricula is a kind of a more role specific, where we kind of cover some skills, some knowledge, some processes. We give an introduction to some tools that are really just relevant for the roles. A typical example here would be trainings on Salesforce, for example, for our salespeople. And how all these three curricula, how is it all delivered in a way, designed and delivered? That is through a blended learning. And if we wanted to kind of, see a little bit, open up that blend and see what's inside that, I'd say that we kind of have like four main elements. The first one are online courses. So we have, our own LMS, our internal LMS, and we use that to, where we host courses on the product mainly. So we're going to have that part, right? Kind of, self-paced learning on the LMS. And that is supported also by live sessions. And so instructor-led training, where as much as possible, we try to include elements of flipped classroom training. So for us, it's really, really important. And again, we'll talk about it in a second. It has become even more important after we've gone remote, that our learners have a role like a very active role in their learning, right? Really as active as possible. And yeah, so that's really like kind of a paramount, like one of the pillars of our blend. And the last pillar, if you want, which is kind of more than a pillar, I'd say it's kind of like a overarching, like an overarching approach, if you want, which is the one of gamification. So to make the learnings for the 3 weeks as enjoyable and as fun as possible, and that's definitely where Kahoot comes really into play as well, because that's kind of possibly the main tool that we use to achieve that fun factor. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about how we use it as well when we see the challenges that we've met as we've gone remotely. Which, in fact, let's talk about that. What are they? Well, I'd say since going remotely, probably the very first thing that we were kind of confronted when we heard, okay, nobody can come to Berlin anymore. We have to start running the program, the 3 weeks remotely. I guess the first question that we had in mind is, how do we make sure that our delivery remains engaging? And how do we make sure that we manage to keep that kind of flipped classroom element, the kind of very active role element of the learners. That's something that we never use PowerPoints, right? So we never use PowerPoints, even when we were running the program in place in Berlin, right? During the sessions, we've always used a lot of whiteboard and again, a lot of teamwork and things like that. So the question really was, how do we translate that? How do we translate that approach to a virtual environment, to a remote environment. And what you see here, right, it's kind of, some of the tools or some of the approaches that we came up with. Again, it's not kind of like a recipe, I would say. It's just something that, at least for us, it works very well. Hopefully, maybe, can kind of spur some ideas, or, also something that you can try. Definitely something that we learned. It's that ever since going remotely, it's something that, we were always um, working. We've always been working kind of in a very much in an agile way, meaning, kind of trying and, new stuff. Is this working? Is this not working? And ever since we went remote, and in particular at the beginning, there was very much something that, we put in place, right? We said, okay, let's try this. Is this working? If not, we'll try something else. And that kind of, attitude, that's something that I would definitely recommend having. If you are, faced with the same challenge of, translating something that, you've been running live into the live, in person, into something remote, just try things, see what works for you. Well, what worked for us is to just extend the number of assignments that we were giving to the learners, right? So team assignments are put there, really kind of, group work that happens outside of the classroom. So, things like we give you an hour, and now you prepare us a demo of the product, for example, things like that. And also, like, kind of like inserting a little bit of a gamification element to it, so that they get the opportunity. I mean, on the one hand, again, we come back to that idea of them taking an active stance in their learning, right? Also, there is also the element then to kind of spur a little bit more kind of a social, the social element of it, which is something that, if you're running a program live, like in person, you're kind of bound to lose a little bit, right? I mean, you used to kind of have people in the same room for 3 weeks, more or less, and now they're all over the world. And so how do you kind of maintain that element? And for us to make sure that, in our delivery, we had as much as possible opportunities for people to work together offline, but also online. And this is the kind of, the second part that I have there, right? We use Zoom to do our delivery of the sessions. And a tool that we've been using a lot in Zoom is breakout rooms. So breaking up the learners in small groups of people, pairs, 3-4 people, to mainly do, kind of, group work, maybe practice together on using the product, for example. But that, again, like, it's not just been like very important to foster active learning, to foster, kind of peer-to-peer learning a little bit as well, but also really to foster the social element, and making them, have them, come together, work together, get to know each other a little bit better, definitely. One thing that we use a lot as well when we run this kind of, breakout rooms as a kind of support is Google Forms, Google Sheets. It's a very handy way to set up exercises. You want them to, answer questions, for example, after they're done with the group. A Google Form is perfect, right? It takes really 2 seconds to set up, and it's definitely a great tool. Something that we've been using a lot in our live sessions is a remote whiteboard. We use Miro. I know there are other tools out there, like Mural. I think it's one of them, but it's something that I would definitely recommend to use. So we started using, PowerPoints or slides. I kind of recommend that, especially if you're looking into having some kind of, more interactive type of presentation. And I can just show you quickly how this could look like. If you'd have like kind of a presentation here, like your presentation board, and very simple, you could just prepare a props in another window. Let me just zoom in. Props in another window. There you go. And it's basically, right, what I've been telling you about, right? So these are the remote onboarding challenges that we've been having at Adjust. And what is our approach has been. There you go. And that's been our approach. And it's great, right? Because, it kind of makes really the really instructor-led presentation part, very interactive. It's nice. You can put nice eye-catching type of things. So it's really great. We've seen our learners are loving it. They're really loving it. So that's something to use something like that. It's very much recommended. And of course, now coming back, and we have it here as well. Part of our approach has definitely been using Kahoot as well. So we were using Kahoot. Before, say when we were running the program live in Berlin. And we've been using it ever since we've gone remote, perhaps even to a larger extent. And for us, Kahoot really ties in very well into the gamification aspect of it, in the sense that, particularly now that we do it remote, and it's really important to kind of keep people engaged. The way we're using it is that we're mainly using, like in live sessions, as icebreakers. So to really get the people going, and what type of questions we'll be using there is questions on to kind of reinforce the learnings that the learners the learners have done maybe the previous day in the previous live sessions that we had done together. Perhaps reinforce the learnings that they've done in the readings, right? In that safe-based learning that they do on the LMS, or introduce new topics as well, perhaps that we kind of covered that in the session. So that's there is that aspect. And then a very important also like role or use that we make of Kahoot is using self-paced challenges. And what we run throughout the 3 weeks program, it's an ongoing challenge where basically every day or almost every day we assign them a self-paced challenge, which is with questions used to again reinforce the learnings of the day in a way. Sometimes also to kind of ask questions about the company in general. So again, to kind of support that element as well, right, of promoting the company culture. And we keep a leaderboard of it. We have a weekly winner, and at the end of the 3 weeks, we also have this Kahoot. We call it Kahoot challenge, a Kahoot challenge winner, and the winner gets also wins a nice prize at the end of it. And and we've seen that this works a lot, and you see people become really, really competitive about it. Which is great, it's great, and we also heard from them that it's really like a great way to kind of again stay on top of the learnings really. So that was kind of one of the or if you want like kind of the first challenge there, make it engaging or keep it engaging, keep it in relevant for them. Second one is to track the progress of the learners. For us, having had always those 3 weeks in person, right, meant like a very, very close contact with the learners, right? So kind of seeing them really day in, day out in the classroom, and so definitely easier to get an idea, an understanding of where they were in their learning, right? How were they progressing? Even since we switched remotely, that's definitely has been a challenge to kind of stay on top of that, kind of have the same understanding. And what we have been using, we kind of be recurring to LMS analytics in terms of the scoring of the test that they pass there on the LMS for the different courses. Something that has worked very well for us, and I would definitely recommend anyone again, switching to a remote environment, is to slot in some Q&A time. Meaning, give, really kind of scheduling in the schedule of your learners an hour a week, something like that is just dedicated to them asking questions. This kind of serves as a replacement in a way, of the kind of question that the learner comes to you at the end of a session. if you're running it live in the classroom, right? I guess you're familiar, and you finish the session, and there is always one coming up to you saying, "Oh, by the way, sorry, can I ask you a question? Because I didn't quite get that." And the question for us is really, how would we replace that? Because that, it's a very important part of the learning, right? To kind of make feel everybody uh, um, um, safe in a way, also kind of give them a safe space in which they can ask questions, and really kind of make sure that the progression is up front. And scheduling in, locking in this 1 hour a week, and asking them maybe to submit the questions in advance. So what we do is to kind of we give them access to Google Sheet, where they can just simply as they go along, maybe after the sessions, or as they go along the readings on the LMS, they can just put in the questions that say, "Oh, hold on a second, I didn't quite understand that, and I want to ask my trainers," and then pick them up there in that Q&A question. That for us at least, it's a strategy that's definitely worked very well. And the other thing is to also set in some kind of one-to-one tutoring. So kind of assigning every learner a tutor out of the training team. That is kind of, and the tutor then kind of being responsible to stay close to the learner, check in from time to time, is everything all right? Do you have any questions, things like that. And also, also that gives the learner then kind of like a go-to person again, also outside of those Q&A time, if there is any kind of urgent question. And again, that has worked very well for us. I also feel that it kind of gave a little bit more of a closer connection, which again, is kind of hard to replicate in a virtual environment, right? So yeah, something that I would suggest to try. And finally, something else that we're using to kind of keep an eye on the progress of the learners are also the scores that we see coming through Kahoot. So what we do is to kind of we have a look particularly at the challenges score, right? The score of those self-paced challenges that I talked about before, just to see a little bit, how are the learners progressing, and or do we see a recurring problem, right? Maybe we see most of the learners having failed on a particular question, or on a set of questions all dealing with the same topic, and that kind of gives us like an indication of, again, how learners are doing, and also if there is any kind of improvement that we have to do to our curricula, or anything that perhaps coming back to the Q&A time, is there anything that we need to talk about that in the Q&A time. And yes, so that's kind of more or less at a glance what we're doing, and the kind of challenges, the kind of tools, and yeah.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrea. So if you're watching this on demand, I just want to share a couple more resources. So if you could just go to the next slide, Andrea, then I can show you. There you go. So we've got a ton of success stories on our website, including the one that Andrea wrote with us, where people share how they use Kahoot in their company. So I do recommend you to check that out, as well as a ton of short video guides, which are mostly hosted by me. You can find on our YouTube account. And in 1 to 2 minutes, I basically walk you through how to use specific features. And if you've got any other questions, you can either find it on our help and support center, or just shoot us an email at business@kahoot.com. Thank you so much for watching.